We're not seeing this enough on the political agenda. We've got an election, a federal election happening at the moment. We've got a New South Wales state budget about to go. And we need to see much more commitment. And I think a really key point for those domestic and family violence services and us as peak body representing them is this sector has been chronically underinvested in for decades.
You're reporting today an average 2-month wait time for critical support services across the state. Some services even being forced to close their books. Just how significant is that? And can you tell us, when you say critical support, what sort of services are we talking about here?
We're talking about life-saving organisations like staying home leaving violence programs, women's domestic violence court advocacy services, refuges, children's specialist workers within refuges. So we are really, really pleading with this government right now to ensure they are funding the sector. We've called for many, many years to increase the baseline. We've always welcomed if there has been injections here and there, but if we're not funding that baseline, we're not providing that critical core funding support that the sector needs to see right now. And even for, our regional members, one of them spoke to us about the issue where they're facing so much demand at the moment. They described it as shooting a water pistol into a bushfire. So we've got huge wait times, an average of 2 months, as you've just suggested. That's an average of 33 people on a waiting list. So that's missed opportunities. That's, lack of support for people that need it right now.
The New South Wales government did announce $230 million over 4 years as part of an emergency package. And that was almost a year ago to the day in May of last year. That was putting money into crisis response, the justice system, early intervention, research as well, I think. Have you felt that money making an impact on the ground at all?
I need to be really clear about this announcement that it was over 4 years. So it was hugely welcomed. We worked really closely with the government on it, but we were really, really key in our advocacy around the fact that these investments are key and welcome, but without the baseline funding increase, we're not going to address the issue. We need to note here that we've got chronic underinvestment for decades and years. So we welcome that investment. We're not seeing some of the fruition of it yet because it was only obviously a year ago, but we didn't fund the baseline. So injections here and there and tougher laws and reforms are ineffective if we're not funding the baseline to meet the current need of New South Wales and ultimately across Australia for those other services in need.
So how much of an increase to that baseline funding are you calling for, and where exactly does that money need to be directed?
So we worked with a national economist on this to ensure we had evidence-based figures. We worked with our members to ensure we had an evidence base, and we're calling for 163 million to be funded into those services. Again, that's core and cluster, that's staying home leaving violence, that's the DVRE, the domestic violence enhanced, which is a crisis service. That's the refuges, the women's domestic violence court advocacy services. So there's a list of services that need that core funding right now.
And Delia, when those services, like we're talking about, 2-month wait times and when victim survivors being turned away from services, what are the further risks to them if they cannot access the critical services that they need?
I mean, look, our services are telling us that there's, inadequate pathways to housing because those services are desperate right now to get women somewhere safe. We're seeing reduced quality work with clients because the time isn't there. But I also want to note and credit these incredible services that are stepping up and using their own goodwill and their own time to ensure they're servicing clients. When they're given targets by government, they're going above and beyond those targets, but they're still not able to meet the need and demand right now. So it's certainly not a sector that isn't stepping up and saving lives, but it's a sector that needs to be heard, listened, respected, and adequately funded for the work it does. So we also need to avoid work and burnout, and that's also a key issue. And we need to ensure that clients can get the help they need when they pick up the phone.
Absolutely. Delia Donovan, the CEO of Domestic Violence in New South Wales, thanks so much for your time and insights.
Thank you, Melissa. Cheers, Melissa.
And if this story has raised any issues for you, you can get help by calling the National Sexual Assault and Family Violence Counselling Helpline. That number is 1800-RESPECT, 1800 737 732.